Hey, everybody. My name is Michelle Fox, and this is the GreenTalk Show. And today, my guest is Nicole Pamani. She's an independent contractor for the green economy and the host of Do What You Can for the People. Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Michelle. Thanks so much for having me on the show today.
It's really great to have you. Thank you so much. So, I'm going to dive right in. And I'd like to ask you, we're going to talk today about packaging. What do you think is the biggest issue with packaging and what can be done about it?
Yeah, so first, thanks so much for inviting me to be on the show to talk about sustainable packaging. It's so nice to meet a fellow packaging nerd, circular economy nerd. I always love to talk about this. And I think before we kind of dive into the challenge, I think it's important to frame the opportunity. So we've all been doing so much online shopping. That's no surprise, but I always like to throw some facts and figures behind what we all know is happening. And in 2018, 87 billion packages were delivered worldwide. Those numbers have gone up year over year. And I think that with COVID, there's been an even bigger shift to online shopping in 2020. So I think this year's numbers are going to be even higher. And so with all of that online shopping and all of that e-commerce, there's a lot of packaging that's being circulated. And I think it's important to think about how we can manage all of that packaging, manage those materials, and think about the infrastructure we have in this country and some innovative materials and models that are coming out for sustainable packaging.
So tell me more about, we know that there's a problem with everything that gets delivered needs to come in packages.
Absolutely.
You mentioned to me before about cardboard. It seems like a pretty good thing. I can recycle it.
Yeah, so there's a few purposes of packaging that I think we should talk about first. So the first one is obviously to store and house your product, and that's known as primary packaging. The second is to protect your product in transit. So that's where the cardboard comes in. That's called secondary packaging. But packaging is also used to share and highlight important information. So things like how to use it, warning labels, expiration dates, and it's a branding and marketing opportunity for the person selling that. So cardboard has definitely served all of those purposes, and it is the most used packaging, and I think it's the best option that we have available to the masses right now for a few reasons. So we know how to recycle it, and by we, I mean consumers, but also municipalities. Cardboard is generally made from recycled content, and recycling cardboard only takes about 75% of energy compared to making a whole new virgin cardboard carton. Recycling 1 ton of cardboard saves 46 gallons of oil. So there's a huge potential there. But I think that a lot of people don't realize that there are some challenges with cardboard. So for example, it's not an infinitely recyclable material. After it's been recycled about 5 or 7 times, the fibers are generally too short to be recycled again. And that's when it goes through the downcycling process and it gets turned into things like paper paste, which is used to make egg cartons. Also, a lot of people don't realize that if cardboard becomes wet or stained with grease, it can't be recycled. And so that presents a problem for some of the use cases that we're seeing. It's an imperfect solution, but I would say it's the best that we've got that everyone is aware of at the moment.
Pizza boxes. So I've seen you're supposed to cut off the top, you compost the top that has the grease and oil on it, and you can recycle anything that is pristine.
Absolutely.
Not the whole box if it has pizza grease on it.
Absolutely. And I think that that's great, but that, begs a whole different conversation that we can get into another time about composting infrastructure and availability and how that's not something that everyone has access to. So cardboard's good, cardboard's great, but is it the best application for, say, the food industry where we see a lot of it happening? We have those little cardboard takeout boxes, but if you put like pasta sauce in there, you can't recycle that until you properly clean it.
Right. And so my only option then is to throw it away.
Yep. Yeah, which is what we're trying to avoid.
Right. And tell me about innovative packaging.
Yeah, so there's a lot of cool stuff happening with packaging in the sustainability realm. I like to split it into 2 considerations. There are material innovations and then there's model innovations. So we touched on this a little bit, composting like your pizza box. There's a whole industry of compostable packaging that's coming out. You may have received like one of those poly bags in the mail that says this bag is compostable, which is great. And those are really gaining traction in like Europe and Australia, where they have the infrastructure to process that packaging. Unfortunately, in the US, we don't have that at the moment. Most compost facilities won't accept that packaging. So again, another imperfect solution. Another thing that we're seeing in terms of materials is bioplastics. So bioplastics are really cool. It's like your PLA, things made from corn or from potato starch or from seaweed, like really innovative stuff. But it can be a little bit misleading. So by law, any bioplastic manufacturer only has to use 25% biomaterial to call itself a bioplastic. So how much are they using? They don't really need to disclose that. And oftentimes bioplastics have chemical additives so that it extends the shelf life, and then that makes them non-compostable or non-recyclable. So definitely something to keep an eye on as infrastructure develops, as we see more regulation around these things, but that's kind of on the material side. What really gets me going are the model innovations. And so the most commonly known one is probably the reusable or refillable model. So this is like if you go to Starbucks, you bring your own coffee mug, or you could, and they'll probably reinstate that. Or if you go to the grocery store and you bring your own shopping bags. But a couple of other similar things are like Blue Land, which is a cleaning product company. And so you buy the bottle once, and then you fill it with your own water, and you put a tablet in, and it becomes like your Windex or your kitchen counter cleaner. And then you keep that bottle, you keep adding water to it, and you just buy the tablets. So the thing about reusable and refillable models is that the consumer retains ownership of the packaging. On the flip side, if we look at packaging as a service, that's where the brand or a third party retains ownership of the packaging. So for example, there's Loop Store by TerraCycle, where you buy your, for example, Haagen-Dazs ice cream, and you eat it, and then it finishes, and they'll collect that aluminum packaging back for you and replace it with a full one. When you're looking at secondary packaging, things like Lime Loop and Repack that are offering reusable packaging to actually ship out products, and then they have a whole system where they collect it and then reuse that packaging. So that's the kind of stuff that really gets me going, the model innovations. But there is no perfect solution, and there are pros and cons with each of these. And I think the important thing to remember is that we're coming at the problem from every imaginable angle. There is no one solution that's going to work for everyone. And I think that's a common thread in sustainability. There's so many options when it comes to sustainable packaging for businesses to consider. You have to think about your unique needs, the consumer habits, your budget. And a lot of this really comes down to what the customer is willing to do. So are they willing to take their own container to the store, to the bulk store, and fill it up with their groceries? Are they willing to hold on to all of those aluminum cans and like have them picked up? Do they have the space in their house for that? How much money are they willing to spend for that premium, for the sustainability premium? Because when you're talking about packaging, you're really talking about something that the consumer has no use for once they receive the product that they wanted. So all of these considerations need to come into play when brands and businesses are thinking about what sustainable packaging solution is going to work for them.
And before we close out, I'm just curious, like, what do you do as a person who's so knowledgeable about this? And it's incredible. And I'm very excited for you. This is the future. How do you, when you're shopping or when you're thinking about what you buy, what goes through your head?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to what works for my lifestyle. So yes, I'm a sustainability nerd, but I also want it to be sustainable for me. So I need to think about my personal use case. I have like a mixture of things going on. I have some packaging as a service. I have some refillable and reusable models. I also have just some compostable things that I'm using. It really comes down to what's available in my neighborhood, and what makes sense for my lifestyle, because I think that we've become used to a certain way of living, and sustainability doesn't mean that you need to give that up. It just means that you need to think a little bit more carefully about what kinds of compromises you're willing to make.
Got it. It's a habit change. It's changing habits. And I just want to thank you so much. I mean, this has been great. I know we could talk about this for hours and hours, but you brought up so many good points for people to think about. And I just want to wish you a wonderful, happy holiday.
Thanks, Michelle. This has been a lot of fun. I will take any opportunity to rant and talk about sustainable packaging. So thank you so much for putting this together.
Thanks, Nicole. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.